Stick to the same theme a little bit. Coming from the 48th district and being a freshman in a distinct minority in the House of Delegates, how would you try to be effective? How do you intend to work with Republicans in Richmond and less progressive members of our own caucus to achieve results while at the same time remaining true to your progressive values? So in other words, how would you go about getting legislation passed in a Republican-dominated House? And this goes to Paul.
Thanks, George. So this is really a process question. I think it's how, as an individual, you approach the issues and how you approach your own relationships with other people. I'm a very even-tempered, considerate, and thorough person, and I think I would bring that skill set to this position. There are certainly issues such as education where I see opportunities that we can work across party lines. Thanks.
One of the things that struck me specifically is that civility is sort of broken down in Virginia politics of the General Assembly because we don't take the time to get to know each other. So one of the big things is, what struck me is that the Congressional Women's Caucus has a softball game across party lines, and they use that time to get to know each other. Certainly going down to Richmond, I would try to find ways to get to know folks offline is what I would say. But learn about where they are and why they kind of come from where they come from on the issues and find ground for consensus.
I think this question strikes to the core of what each of us hopes to do in Richmond, and while we might agree completely on so many of the issues, this is where we start to think about what individual are we looking for in this position. And when I do this job, I'll do the same thing I've done every single day of my career and my life, staying true to who I am internally, but being willing to listen to all sorts of solutions, all sorts of ideas, all sorts of backgrounds and viewpoints. Because if not, how can we get anything done?
I think I can fairly claim, this is an unprecedented situation we're in, but I think I can fairly claim to have experienced something like it when I was a young man. I told this story on Wednesday. I was the head of the organization that got legislation through a Reagan presidency and a Republican-dominated Senate, which created the United States Institute of Peace. It took a combination of commitment to principle, political savvy, negotiating ability, understanding of the other side, and relationship building. I succeeded and I can succeed again.
This is a great question, actually. To give you a perfect example of how I would ensure that I'm effective as your next delegate, is I have experience in coalition building and working with members in the Republican Party while I was working on Capitol Hill. For instance, the human trafficking bill that I developed and drafted for Representative Karen Bass was a bipartisan bill that was co-sponsored by our leading representatives from Virginia, including Representative Frank Wolf and Representative Jim Moran, which ended up getting adopted into TVPRA.
I also have experience working on issues in the state legislative assembly, and that experience taught me a few things about freshmen. One, I saw freshmen come in who thought they were going to change the world overnight. I would study committee assignments. I would meet with senior legislators from the other Democratic delegations, and I would also start building relationships immediately, looking at past bills that have been attempted that have failed, and looking at the different votes and understanding why, and working to address those issues.